Good morning, all. I'm Carolina Giraldo Nohra from the Politecnico di Torino, and I'm going to present to you today the paper I will be presenting on the Designing Sustainability for All Conference 2019 organized by Lens Network. This work I will present today is developed by myself and Professor Silvia Barbero from the Politecnico di Torino as well. So our work, it's called Systemic Design Approach, Delivering Policy for Flourishing Circular Regions. Let's start. So this is what it looks like, our current consumption model. This is the first image we think about when we talk about globalization, mega trends, like urbanization, how the worldwide network works. But actually, when we are talking about megatrends and the megatrends that are ruling our contemporary world, according to PwC, it looks pretty much like this, actually. These are the regions that actually are consuming more CO2 emissions from accelerated urbanization, from what it's about when we talk about climate change, resource scarcity, and basically one of us is consuming, humanity is consuming in average 1.7 Earths. So instead of having like a normal, like a globalization map in our minds, this is the map that really matters nowadays, which has taken us to the limit of this linear economy. So more than ever, we require to adopt new economic models, such of course as circular economy. So what has been Europe towards this new economic and a productive model? If we have into account the SDGs, responsible consumption and climate action, because basically Europe is depending a lot on these exports rather than imports. So Europe has taken action like in that way through proposing different strategies, from the circular economy package, from the EU plastic strategy, from EU economy strategy, which of course are guidelines and are principles that are important for European countries to adopt. But the problem is not only state these guidelines, but the challenge is how to execute them. What it will take for regions, enterprises, people to transition to a more circular model rather than the linear one that has taken us to the crisis of resource scarcity, climate change, and all of this. So there are two basic questions on this matter. What are the impacts that will bring the systematic decoupling of economic growth from resource consumption in European regions? So yeah, all of these proposals sound fantastic, but at the end of the day, like, who are the winners, who are the losers of this? Because it's not only like a bright future, but also what it will take. So will the industry and employment segments be ready enough for this transition by 2030? All of the SDGs and all of these strategies I've mentioned before has a very ambitious targets for 2030 to have transition to a circular economy. So there's a lot to do in this decade to come. So what will be the best way to transition, and what will be the discipline that will give us the tools? And there's where, and to tackle these wicked problems that are in our contemporary world. So in that way, how, from the design perspective, how design can innovate in policy planning for sustainable development and the growing of circular economies. So from designing of services, policies, and products has shown us that all of their decades of designing towards sustainability has shown us to be, and it's turning into an essential tool for society, economies, and governments to approach cohesion and resilience for regions and territories and industries as well. So in that point of view, we would like to talk about anticipatory actions for regions. So this is what it looks like when we talk about the context. So context can be like on lots of elements, but complexity is how we basically overview this element, what interpretation, what reading of this complexity. And the implementation of that complexity is what are the solutions, how we can connect the dots. And complexity has enormous amounts of solutions. The thing is how we read this complexity and how we interpret it. So in that case, the systemic design approach, which I want to talk about today, provides a proper methodology to address the complexity in a decision-making process. And as to give you a tangible example and not just like a very, let's say, theoretical approach of the thing, I will talk about a concrete example of an Interreg Europe project, which is called Retrace, which we have had basically an approach from systems design towards tangible and concrete solutions for territories transitioning towards circular economy. So, but first, I would like to give you a background methodology, a bit about where we come from. So basically, systemic design comes from systems thinking, industrial ecology, industrial symbiosis concepts, and cybernetics, and also mixing up with design approaches. So basically, the combination of these two bring us to the 5 principles of systemic design. The output of a system is the input of another one that creates new relationships in the system, making the system more autopoietic, self-regenerative, basically, how we can generate better and new solutions that make territories resilient, which take us to the point of act locally. How the operational context is prioritized, and talking about the man at the center of the project. So how we are going to prioritize as well human beings as the center of these systems, and how they can live in more harmony with their surroundings. So in that view, I would like to introduce to you the Retrace Interreg Europe project. It's a project from 2016 to 2020, a systemic approach for regions transitioning towards circular economy. It includes 5 partners: Piedmont region, Slovenia, Northeast Romania, Basque Country, and Nouvelle Aquitaine. So it aims at promoting systemic design as a method allowing local and regional policies move towards a circular economy, when waste from one productive process becomes the input of another, and preventing waste being released into the environment. So basically, we have 3 outcomes very important in this project. A methodological tool for regions, so how regions can adopt not only for Retrace, but other processes towards sustainable development in the regions. The exchange of good practices, because it's not that we are inventing something that has not happened. Maybe the creating awareness about good practices or good assets in regions between them can give activate learning process, which will take us at the end, which was one of the outcomes, to the regional action plans that are going to be concrete actions that regions will take to change transition their policies to support in a better way the circular economy. So basically, systemic design towards a circular economy is a key tool for sustainable development. How it helps in the way the systemic design approach provides a holistic overview which supports the creation of strategies to enhance future productive systems on transitioning towards circular economy. So basically, the thing is that circular economy as a concept, it's fantastic, but the thing is how we approach it from the resources that we have in our territory, the views, like the local assets, and not only having as a very orthodox and imposed thing. We have to ban plastic. We have to basically it's not a dogma. It's more about how we can make our territories transition in a more coherent way. So, in the way of systemic design for policymaking, how it works and what it helps for, we have our current classic top-down approach, and what we are proposing in Retrace or systemic design, what proposed is taking these policy design approaches. Not only top-down, it's bad, and bottom-up is great only. No, we consider it's a combination of both, of bottom-up and top-down, how we can generate, basically, in this case, horizontal dialogues, strategic thinking, outlines. It's a constant dialogue between the citizenship, the enterprises, but also the government. So basically how we can change things from both sides rather than just being on one side or another. So a bit of the methodology of the project. So first of all, we did a holistic diagnosis. That is one of the most important parts of the systemic design method, which I'm going to explain a bit now. Then from this holistic overview of the regions, of each region we had potentialities and criticalities of the regions and what were the main issues. Then the development of the systemic design, analysis of the possible results, outcomes of these new strategies we're going to propose, the implementation of these ones, the implementation of the regional action plans in this case, and then will be results and feedback. So first of all, let's talk about the holistic diagnosis. So the holistic diagnosis had several parts. So first of all, we have the analysis of the territory, which we had an analysis with quantitative and qualitative data, where we basically did an analysis not only from the databases, but also from the economical, cultural, demographic aspects, also from the urban aspects of the territory. But also we did a second phase of the analysis of current policies, what has been done in the territory towards related, not in per se of circular economy, because the word of circular economy in regional policies, it's now emerging, so it's not something that is very common. So basically, what are the issues of these policies, and also to see what are the policies that inhibit certain processes of circular economy in regions. For example, if you have the value chain of rice in a region, and then there's a policy that says that all of the outputs, or the outputs of a rice value chain are considered biohazard for different reasons, and you know that this resource can be used to empower, I don't know, entrepreneurs in rice bioplastic, why not? So basically to see also what has been like the policies that have inhibited certain processes. And then these two components that you're gonna see there allow us to understand the analysis of industrial economical sectors. Also, we know that regions have priority axis as smart specialization strategy, have certain sectors that are they know they want to invest in, but also we want to make them aware of other value chains that maybe are not as, for example, in Piedmont region will be automotive, but maybe it could be a value chain that can cooperate, like create collaborations with other small value chains and be an important economic asset. So that's what I'm saying now, that, for example, potential connections to assess the potential synergies, and also to see like what were like the needs and critical potentialities of the regions. So as I was telling you before, the holistic diagnosis analyzed all of these areas from the economy, geography, urban centers, demography, and culture. So what we want to do is have an overview of what are the assets of this region to make them not only the policymakers, but also the citizens, the enterprise, our stakeholders of each region that was from the diverse background, to have a common language to make this for decision making. So what was the output? The output was like several infographics for each region. So this is one example of Piedmont region, which this is the geography one, so we can see what are like the void areas, what is the main value chains, how much of the territory they occupy, how much of the territory we have in central kind of infrastructure, woods area, what are the potentialities that maybe we're not so aware. And it was quite interesting, this exercise, because it's like creating a common language for stakeholders that maybe are not technicians, and for the region to like having a more open conversation with their stakeholders. So this is another example from Slovenia, let's say, from the part of economy, so the different like important sectors, but also if there are a lot of, let's say, small enterprises. No, it's a country of big corporates, which are the main players, and also this is to invite the big players to work in other, to get involved in other sectors as well, and also the demographics and so on. So this process of the holistic diagnosis, the analysis of the policies, and we visit each region to see the best and practices they had on circular economy, took us to the conclusion of saying, okay, what are our common policy, like the policy gaps of everybody, and then we go into the 6 common policy gaps like our regions had. And this is because we then realized that, yeah, each region, each territory is different, but we have like, let's say, these problems that are most in common. So support collaboration between sectors, rising and knowledge of operators coursing in circular economy, policy regulations on circular economy, tailored policy measures on circular economy, policy in support to business and market development for circular economy activities, and policy focus on small and medium enterprises and micro manufacturing. So these problems, of course, there were a list of more, but this was our common ground. And then I think this is one of the very interesting tool as well, because it realizes that circular economy, in fact, has very similar challenges in regions. Of course, it changes from depending on the situations, but did this encourage also to create a dialogue between regions to say, okay, to share their concerns, their how to basically what actions we're going to take. So it was interesting to be supporting, collaborative, and sharing, and this is like the experience we had. The success factors in this, so basically we had the holistic diagnosis, the exchange of experience, and then the regional action plans. The regional action plans basically are these policy with resumed in a policy brief, and they basically state like 5 or 4 actions that each regions are going to implement over the next 2 years of implementation. So the first 2 years are from research, 2 years of implementation. But even though we know that a policy change in 2 years is very ambitious and it's impossible, these actions are meant to have a short, medium, and long-term effect. Why? Because short in the sense that, okay, we need to activate like leverage of, to activate certain small actions to create a medium effect and then a long effect. So basically we are doing actions that could be of allocating grants on certain bioeconomy, let's say a bioeconomy platform, for example, for Piedmont region, we did that. So basically to turn actions to start addressing the sectors and start calling the enterprises to participate on this. But the main goal will be, for example, in the next programming period in 2021, that like the region will consider our recommendation, our actions as part of the programming period. So that will be a huge, for example, policy change in the sense that it's not only small actions, but this requires time and also requires to have small actions in the previous, so regions can have a huger kind of impact. And in regards systemic design supporting EU governance for policymakers, delivers a tool for better decision making, effective sustainable development, new scenarios, economic profit. And also for the EU level, supporting key instruments as cohesion policy. And also it's a model for policymakers in other regions with common policy gaps. It also enhances territorial thinking, part of pan-European policy towards circular regions. So basically it supports existing elements of the European Commission. Thank you very much, and follow Retrace.